Hey, what's up there, everybody? How's it going out in YouTube land? What are all my friends and subscribers doing? And how are your lives going? It's been kind of a stressful couple weeks lately, but also that's given me a little bit of a, I don't know, a glimpse into, how difficult it is sometimes to pull yourself out when, things just keep knocking you down. But at the same time, I'm also well aware that when we have certain circumstances in our life that happen to us, we tend to notice those circumstances. To give you a quick example, which is not related directly, like whatever you do as a trade for your job. When I was a roofer, I started noticing more roofs. It's just like when you get a new car, and then you all of a sudden notice that there's a lot of those on the road. But you never noticed them before because you weren't looking for it. Well, when we're in a good mood, in a spiritual mood, whatever, we start, let's say we find some new diet or some new exciting thing in our lives, and we pursue it for a while and we feel great, and then, the high that goes with that falls away, and then we go into a low and we can go back and forth. Not necessarily just spiritual, I just threw that one out there as an example, but the highs and lows of life come with us noticing positives and negatives. So the more a person is a negative person, the more they tend to focus on the negative. So I've learned to not do that in my life. To even when I'm down in the dumps or at my feeling my lowest, I manage to laugh and smile and go out and have fun and do things. So managing our emotional intelligence is very important, but also when I'm feeling low lately, I've noticed more. I guess it's not that I've noticed more of the negativity, it's just that it's rubbed me the wrong way. And so I just wanted to make this video to say, don't be an asshole. It seems so simple. And lately I've seen, an ungodly amount of asshole type people, not just jerks or people who are, there's bullies, there's people who are hateful. And the thing is, you realize that almost always it's traced back to how we were raised or our childhoods or something that happened to us. And I get that, but it doesn't matter. It becomes irrelevant where it came from or why the people, it just doesn't matter anymore. A person who is undesirable to be around, is difficult for everyone, and especially those of us who really try hard to be good people. And some would say, hey, what is a good person? Well, we know a good person when we see one, okay? I think that most of us do, and even those of us who aren't good people, even a good person who's not a good person themselves can recognize a good person. It's something that's inherently built into us. It's genetic. We've evolved over millions of years into what we are now, and that whole time we had to survive, which meant we had to be aware of our competition, of other people, and so we learned to force out the people in our groups which weren't, desirable to be around. A person who's not a cooperating person only brings down the tribe. And so I heard a story when I was, a couple of years back, and I can't recall if I looked this up to confirm it, but I believe it were the Inuits and in Alaska, and they would, if they had somebody who in their group who was born and showed tendencies of what we would call a psychopath or a sociopath or a person who stole from the group or whatnot, they'd go on a hunting trip and they'd walk to the edge of the ice cliff and they'd push them off, and that was the way they did business. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm sure there are many cases of that. Like if you're not cooperating with the tribe, then you've got to go, or at least banishment was always an option too. But the thing is, I noticed that today we seem to think that it's okay to have people in our midst, in our society, that are like that, as if, well, that's them and we're us, whatever. This person can be a jerk and a thief, that's his life. But it's all of our problems, and we all know that. We're all affected by it. So I guess what I'm getting at, because I don't want to make this too long, is, if people tell you you're an asshole, if people tell you you're a jerk, on a regular basis, then you might be a jerk. I hate to say it. People are so damn arrogant they can't even realize when they're jerks. And but beyond the bully and the person who's just maybe the angry husband or the angry wife or the angry parent, because there's a lot of those out there, and a lot of these assholes who pretend that they're all calm, cool, and collected at work. Then they go home and beat their kids or yell at their wife. These are douchebags. These are, the people who yell at their families. Those are shitty people to me. Those are undesirable people. I would not be friends with someone who beat on his wife. I would never be friends with someone who yelled at his wife or degraded his kids. Because that's a value of mine that I find important. It's irrelevant if a person, everybody does their own thing. Everybody raises their kids differently. Whatever. That's true. Everybody's got their own life and they live it. But I prefer not to interact with people who are jerks. And I think that most of us feel that way. And so that's the first part of what I wanted to talk about, is that, don't be an asshole. And that's not going to that's going to fall on deaf ears on anybody out there who's an asshole. If you're a jerk, you're probably not going to care. And that's unfortunate because, it's amazing what a change of attitude can do to people. Change of mind can change a life. And, we can all overcome, our bullshit, our insecurities that cause us to belittle others, which is always what it is. It's our own insecurities. And we know that if we, the people who are that way, would never belittle my wife or, tell my kids that they're worthless or anything like that. It's just ridiculous to me. But anyhow, the second part I wanted to say was, if you are affected by one of these people, one of these undesirable shitheels that, are the scum of the barrel, some of the worst people that, won't even let their wives leave home, or there's the people who, and it's not just the wives and kids, but that's a huge example because family issues are very important. But there are people who just treat others like shit. They treat the cashier like shit at the store. It's not even purposeful sometimes. Sometimes it's just an accidental. A person decides they're going to be on their cell phone the whole time they're checking out. Disrespect. Get the fuck out. I mean, so there's just a certain amount of courtesy that I feel like we're lacking now in society, but it's not just a now thing. I think that there's always been undesirable people. It doesn't matter how you go back. You can't go back to the 50s and say everybody was just courteous. Sure, in small towns maybe, but there was still a lot of violence and hatred going on everywhere else. There always has been. But yes, it is a fevered frenzy now. People are pretty, there's a lot more people, and the cities are more and more packed. So places like New York, because I've seen, I've never been there, but I've seen a lot of interviews with New Yorkers over the years, and they always say that, it's just normal to just kind of barrel your way through. Like, it's like you kind of grumpy at each other, and I'm sure not all of them are like that, but I mean, that's just a side effect of living in the city, It's like, I don't know, it's not for me, I want to be able to slow down a little bit in life and whatnot, but to not let where I live or how I live, rub me raw or turn me into an asshole. But one of the types of jerks that I'm talking about, they're not even rude or crude. They're the sly, smooth talkers who rip people off in order to make money for their shareholders or for whoever else. In other words, people who are unscrupulous business people who lie for a living. If you lie for a living, then I feel that, there's just no place for that. I really believe that that's a waste of a life. And that's my opinion, of course, A person who's making millions of dollars a year, swindling people is going to say, tough shit, Yeah, I'm making money and I don't care. And that's fine, so be it. But that's just my opinion on it. And I think that a lot of us are affected by these people, too. Not just the person who's affected by the wife or parents who are abusive, but the person who's affected by, a guy who's trying to sell them something they don't need. And so it's like everywhere we turn, there's just people who give us, have us, we kind of lose hope in a way, and lose faith in humanity. And I don't want to see people do that. There was for a while after I had been wronged, ripped off by a couple friends, and this was back, 20 years ago, I didn't trust anyone for a long time, and I was pissed, I was like, dude, people rip me off and steal my things, my friends, twice, 3 times, because I'm a pretty forgiving person. And even since then, I've forgiven the people who wronged me. It's not a big deal. It is what it is. But as we move through life, you know, we learn to, I don't know, call people out that do things like that. And it's really important. So therefore, the people who are affected by the abusers, you know, what I would say the true victims, because today the word victim, it's taken on a complete joke. Like, everyone's a fucking victim. Give me a break, you know, cry me a river. You know, there are real victims out there who are constantly abused and physically abused, you know. Mental abuse is bad enough. That can scare the person into never leaving, you know, an abusive relationship. But physical abuse is something that is just completely uncalled for, you know. It is the most uncivil thing a person could do, and especially a person beating on a woman, you know. And you know what's sad is that the police, as much as I hate to bring it up, you know, they don't set a great example for that, you know, for respectful interactions with one another. You know, the police are assholes too. So what do? You can't trust the police to protect you against these assholes that may be threatening your life. Who can you trust to defend yourself? Well, yourself. And that's, of course, why we have to be protective. And I'm not talking about guns or knives. I'm talking about protecting yourselves with knowledge and awareness, and, you know, not getting swindled, and not getting yourself into a relationship with somebody who's going to abuse you or treat you like shit, because nobody deserves to be treated like shit. And I think everybody should stand up for themselves if they can, and leave a relationship that's harming them. And, you know, I've mentioned that several times in videos, but I don't know why, because it's not, to me, I've never been in an abusive relationship, and I don't know anyone who's in an abusive relationship. I know people who have in the past, but it's never affected me directly. So, but it's still something I feel really strongly about. It's one of the biggest things that, like, really irritates me, that really pisses me off, is when I see men who call themselves men abusing other people. And it's almost always men. Believe me, I'm well aware that there are plenty of abusive women. Some women that are so horrible to their men, but I'm not going to go into detail because it's mostly the men who have the physical strength to beat their women. There's very few women who beat their men, and if they do, dude, get some balls and get out of there. But, you know, that's another story. So I just wanted to get that idea out there that we deserve to defend ourselves. We deserve to be protected and feel safe. Yeah, I'm not talking about safe spaces from words. I'm talking about, but sometimes that is necessary. But safe spaces from not being physically beaten down and hurt. It's a sad thing, and of course I didn't even get into men beating their children, and it's something that, to me, it's so shameful that, and I'm not just talking about a spanking here or there. Talking about men who, like, actually beat up their kids. This is so horrible, and maybe not even physical. I saw a kid who posted a video on YouTube about his narcissistic parents. I just came across it, I think, yesterday, and I actually watched the whole thing. And yeah, the kid was kind of being the typical, you know, teenager type attitude, but the dad was just such a dick. And I was like, it's so hard, because the comment section, you hear that, you see people like, yes, my parents are like this, and I've been in a family like this. Fortunately, my parents love me, and I'm grateful for that, and I love my children. But you know, I just see that that's the number one devastating thing for the future of mankind, is raising your children with fear, and with anger and violence. And that's my opinion. So I'm out. I'll talk to you all later. Peace.